What happens when you're married to a person and their mind never shuts off and your partner feels more like a CEO than a spouse?
I do remember distinctly saying, you go fly, you go do what you need to do. I will be here. I'll keep everything grounded and everything at home good and safe.
If I put a voice to how I spoke to myself, no human being would ever speak to another human being. That was the beginning of a transformation that I realized if I want to be kinder and gentler to people, it has to start with my connection and my relationship with myself.
The willingness to work together as a couple. That's where I found where we really took off at that moment.
What happens when you're married to a person and their mind never shuts off? You know, Mr. 24/7, 365, or when the business is always buzzing away and your partner feels more like a CEO than a spouse. Well, today I'm joined by somebody who knows this better than anybody. I got my girl with me. I got my girlfriend and my wife, all three in one, because it's cheaper that way. Judith Kadi's in the house. How are you?
Gary, Katie. I love watching you.
We're back. And you asked for it. I want to give a shout out to all of you who have asked for more entrepreneur and relationship stuff, business development stuff and relationship stuff, because that's really what the symptoms are in everybody's world, right? And we've gone through it. And what I love about you, Jude, is that you have brought solutions that, you know, we made up on the fly, but are now like processes and ways that we work with other entrepreneurs and spouses to have a life. Because we fought for peace and joy, but it wasn't always there.
No.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of teachers along the way.
Yep.
We got a lot of guidance.
Yep.
And we took what works for us.
Yep.
And it worked for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we're here to share it with you. One of the things that I want to highlight when we dig into this, make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, share this with other people. And I want to give a shout out to Anthony and Maria, who wrote and made a comment about how they use this before they go out on a date. That's pretty cool. I never thought in my wildest dreams that somebody would actually, create a dialogue around, sharing some wisdom and thoughts that we've learned along the way. It's pretty cool.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Because, you could just go out on dates, but it's like, imagine going out on a date with like true purpose and passion and a conversation. Because, typically it can default into like, just every day, how's the weather?
Talking about work.
Talking about work. There you go. Perfect. So we're going to be pulling back the 400 count sheets. Well, no, not sheets. Sorry. No, you had me going. We're going to pull back the kimono. That's what I meant to say. And really, really dig in what it's like to love and live with a high achieving entrepreneur, the pressure, the power that goes along with the power struggles, and really the peace that we thought to find. If you ever wondered how to stay connected with the business owner that never clocks out, this episode is for you. So listen, life with a business that never shuts off is a problem because we get obsessed as entrepreneurs. High achieving men, we get caught in the slipstream of identity and producing. And I want to go back to our 40-year-old self. I want to take us back into the early days. Let's go back into the early days when our business, yes, bled into every corner of our lives. What was that like for you?
Well, in the beginning, I do remember very distinctly wanting to be very supportive, and whatever needed to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that opened the floodgates. And at the same time, I was very busy with Rome and getting a lot of things done. So those two things happening at the same time created a very busy, disconnected, like we were on two different tracks.
Yeah.
You were developing a business. I was getting a kid healthy.
Yep.
But really, I do remember distinctly saying, you go fly, you go do what you need to do. I will be here.
Yeah.
I'll keep everything grounded and everything at home good and safe.
And you were generous with me because you always called me a bowl of a bit too much, right? Like you're like a bowl of
a big bowl of a bit too much.
Oh, there you go. I never get the
know,
quotes right, so thank you for making sure I get it right. But one of the things that I think the beginning stages of our journey together, was when you shared with me that when we're in the home, you're the driver and I'm the passenger.
Yep.
And when I'm at work, I'm the driver and you're the passenger. So you contribute at work, and you did. I would ask you your wisdom.
Yeah.
And then...
And vice versa.
Vice versa. We had a son was diagnosed with autism at a young age.
Yeah.
I dealt with my alcoholism. You came to me courageously and said, you don't have to quit drinking, but you can't stay here. Again, a quote that I heard. That's what I heard.
Right.
You didn't say that exactly. But you said, look, I can't take care of 2 sick boys.
Right.
So, that's what's happening in the world of a family, I think, that to highlight. There's the entrepreneur who's out there trying to create a business.
Yeah.
And then a partner who's trying to create a home as well. And it's just busy and chaotic.
Right. And some of those partners are working as well.
Yeah. Oh, on top of it. Yeah.
Right.
Let's even compound that on top of it. So you can see it's like, it's a clash for just like put the head down and get to work. And we lived in that.
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah. We put head down. And it was like, you're finding schools for Rome. We're moving from Arizona to New York. And by the way,
doctors, lawyers, therapists, schools, outside therapies. So
So dealing with home life and then dealing with a guy who never shuts it off, when I look back in our life, like what was your experience? And this is probably the first time I'm really asking you, like your experience, because I'm afraid to ask that question. So what was your experience of like, I come home and it's like,
Well, in the beginning, it was okay.
Right.
But when we got years into it, then it became way consuming.
Right.
Very, very consuming. And then feeling, wow, it's only about that.
Yeah. And we kind of lost ourselves.
Totally.
Not kind of. We lost ourselves.
Totally.
The fact that we're married for 22 years, really, like as I sit here and think, is pretty cool.
It is.
That we were able to get through that time.
And that's when we first reached out to have an outside person, a mediator, a therapist, to like work through that.
Yeah.
And that was very good. It was the first of, not many, but a first of a group of people that have really helped us tremendously.
Yeah.
And I do remember what prompted that was I shared with you on a regular basis that you were always on your phone.
Right.
Always on your phone.
Yep.
And there was our son, there was me, there was things happening around.
Yeah.
But it was always, you were looking in a different direction.
Yeah. Now that I can look back on my 40-year-old self, I could see that like I was so obsessed with my identity as a business owner and my crazy desire to be successful and produce results for the family. And I thought that was good enough. I thought like, hey, I'm providing, and then we also learned through coaching and counseling, like I'm buying you Gucci shoes and I'm saying you're gorgeous and you're going, you don't love me.
Right. Well, that's when we did love language too. We did that about the same time as well.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of an eye opener. It was like, oh my gosh, of course.
Well, the love languages really, I think, saved our marriage because I never would have gotten the distinction and understood that you just wanted quality time with me. And I'm going, here's Gucci shoes and telling you you're beautiful. Because that's my love language. If you tell me I'm beautiful and you buy me Gucci shoes, I'm good.
That's not true.
I know it's not true. But, it kind of like, puts a little like icing on the poo-poo pie.
Yeah.
I always like to say like, I'm a good person that back in the day of putting icing on a poo-poo.
Yes, you were very good at that.
So I'm like, hey, look at, taste of cream cheese icing here. But meanwhile, it's on a shit pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like getting the poo-poo pie right and having icing is really one of the things. And one of the boundaries that you put in, obviously, one of the things that you said was like, you don't have to quit drinking, you can't stay here. That was the beginning. Like if I didn't get to the numbing part of what I was doing, because I also had a workaholism. So I had alcoholism and I had workaholism. So I had workaholism when I, popped out of bed I was like, I got obsessed with work, and I didn't realize that was numbing me out.
Yeah.
Then at 5 o'clock, because I couldn't drink before 5, because then I would be an alcoholic. I'd crack something, see something on the way home, hit a bar on the way home or whatever. But like, I never wanted to be present. And meanwhile, that's all you wanted from me.
Yeah.
Like the toys and prizes were not what you wanted.
No, just quality time, attention, date nights were great. I always loved that.
Yeah, and I never carved out time because it would be like, oh, I got to run here, I got to run there, I got to do this, I got to do that. I never shut off. And like, we'd be at dinner and I'd be on my phone and I'd see, like, I would see you get pissed off, but I would just like deal with it. Like, I'd be like, she'll get over it. She'll get over it.
No, that's my new one is, listen, woman, get off my back.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, listen.
Yeah, listen, woman, get off my back.
Like, that was the bubble above my head.
Yeah.
But I was really like sitting there going, look, I'm important. And I didn't realize this was all ego-driven stuff, identity-driven stuff. And that's what I would tell my 40-year-old self, married to a beautiful, incredible woman who was dedicated to our son getting well, like didn't take a diagnosis back in the day, like, this is what's going to sow. Because we were told that he was going to always need a caregiver. He was never going to speak. Like his life was over and so was ours, pretty much. I mean, you remember that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you became like a woman that I've never seen before. And you became a warrior and a stand, not only for you, but for me and for Rome.
Yes, absolutely.
And what did it take for you to like muster that up? Because I'm sitting here thinking about what it must be like for you. You have a workaholic, alcoholic husband and a kid who has autism.
Well, how do I say? I'm not afraid of hard work. And I have a really strong belief system.
Okay.
That things will work out.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning. But as time went on and I saw slight improvements with Rome, it really, really helped. And it got me to a point where, okay, we got this. This is going to happen. And we're going to see this happen.
Yeah.
And with you, I am have always been and completely dedicated to you and our relationship.
Yeah. And
I used the same muscle for that. It was the same thing. Believe me, I had days.
Yeah.
Definitely had days. But there's something about, for me, getting into action, meeting people, getting into conversations, talking with those who have done it. And like I told our first doctor and our first lawyer for Rome, tell me what to do, I will do it.
Right.
And that's how I did it. They gave me the best advice and I just followed what the pros told me to do.
Yep. And I'm defiant. So I do the opposite, right? So
yes.
But what I did learn from you and observing you become very successful is find somebody who knows what the hell they're doing.
Yes.
Like Jenny McCarthy was somebody. I remember you sitting me down in front of the TV. And who was the talk show?
It was back in the day. We're talking 2007. It was Larry King Live. And it literally changed my life. What she said about her son was exactly the description of Rome. And then she had Dr. Cartsinell sitting next to her.
Yep.
And that's who I wanted to see. And we eventually became his patients.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. And then also with New York City, we were living in Arizona. And then knowing that there was therapies, doctors, lawyers, and schools in New York City that could help him.
Yep.
Where in Arizona back then, there was absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And that's a perfect example. How crazy. I come to you. We're going to New York.
Yeah.
We're going.
Oh,
and do you know that energy I have? It's like we're going.
Yeah.
And we're going to make it happen. And we made it happen.
Yeah. Well, I want to highlight some learning in there. This is like really good. Did you want to say something else?
No, I can't wait. I know, I'm waiting for...
Well, the first thing was I had a 5-year lease and I had 10 employees.
Didn't matter.
I had we had a house in Arizona that was worth zero because nobody was buying any houses.
Right. It was at 2008.
In 2008. Like there was not one person buying a house in Arizona at that time.
Right. So we couldn't sell the house.
Right. And you go, you'll figure it out. And here's what I learned from that. When a purpose is high enough, when there's a purpose that was high enough, and I remember, I'm like, you're reminding me of the moment when I realized like, hey, I have to throw everything out that I know. And I just have to just take one step in front of the other.
Yeah.
And the chips are going to fall the way they're going to fall. And I told my team, I said that, and that was just part of the team. I go, I'm moving to New York. And this was way before remote, you know, stuff going on.
Yeah.
I'm going to be running this company from New York City.
Yeah.
And we left this house and I'm going to the most expensive place on the planet, you know, on top of it all. And you go, you'll figure it out. You always do. And that's
true.
That's the asset of a high achieving entrepreneur. Like we'll go through fire, we'll walk through fire, you know.
Totally.
But not at what we're looking and what we're sharing about today and what we learned was there's a balance in there. There's a time when you can step back and time when you got to turn in.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what I learned.
Exactly.
See, I was, you know, you used to say like, dude, you went from 0 to 100 in like seconds. And I go, yeah, because I idle at 90 always. Right. But I was able to turn it down and I was able to get some new things in place. And so I want to highlight that when a purpose is high enough for an entrepreneur, you can create the outcome.
Yes, you can.
I see that happening over and over again, as long as the purpose is high enough. And what I was seeing was I was drinking and I was numbing myself out and you go, look, you don't have to quit drinking, but you can't stay here. I'm going back to New York. So I had to confront dealing with that. Like sometimes like you have to shed some things. And alcohol to me was like, there was a never shedding for me because that's what kept me propped up. And I go, okay, my best friend alcohol is going to have to go away if I'm going to continue with my family. And I remember the moment I said, booze, family, choose. And I get to choose whether I step in and get sober and go back to New York with you and figure out all this other business stuff, or I stay in Arizona and the cost of that was too great. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to do it. So I found somebody who had 36 years. And again, what I'm starting to notice, even in this moment as we're sharing the podcast, find people who know what the F they're doing.
Yep.
And it's not how, it's who. Find who and get a model. You know, I talk over and over every episode here. We high achieving entrepreneurial men have such big egos that we can't ask for help because we think it makes us weak. It's the opposite.
It is.
It's the opposite. And as we're unpacking this episode, I'm seeing it. I'm like, it's locking it in more and more, Jude.
It's true.
Because look at, you found Cardinal and Jenny McCarthy. She was like the first one that transformed a kid's life. And by the way, our son he speaks for a living. He's right down the street at Brewster Whitecaps being a sideline reporter. He's going to be a play-by-play guy. He's using his voice.
He couldn't talk until he was 5 and now he's talking for a living. So, yeah. And I also want to go back to not only am and have always been completely dedicated to you, I have always believed in you. In those times, even when you didn't. And I think that's important for a partner too. When you're with a high achieving man, partner, whoever it is, you know, to go back to those moments where you really believe in that person and have a knowingness that it will work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there were times that you loved me and when I didn't love myself.
Yeah.
There were times when you believed in me and I didn't believe in myself. I was like, holy crap, this seems insurmountable.
Right.
And you just kept taking one step in front of another. You told me you'll figure it out. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. And I want to thank you for that because like I'm really present today. Like this isn't a scripted episode. This is like, you know, a really from the heart, like unpacking of like the journey and by the way, I realized my clients, 85% of my clients are husband and wife teams. That's why when I put a poll out to say, what do you want more of? They want this because this is what's really going on. And you don't wear your hat at work and then your hat at home and think you're going to wax on. It's like, it's a congruency. It's a transparency. It's a vulnerability of like getting straight about things. Yeah. Right. And I thought I had to hold it all together. With everything. And I really didn't. Like people want to see like, hey, I'm having a tough day today. Like I found out my son was diagnosed with autism or like, I didn't share that with the team. And I didn't share that with like any vulnerabilities at all. I felt like I had to hold it all together. And people were compassionate at work when I said, look, I'm leaving and here's why I'm leaving and I'm going to lead and you guys can do this. And because you transferred to me, see, I was a micromanager, you know, I was a control freak in the early days. And it was the first time I showed trust for my team, but it was like out of circumstance. But what I learned from that, Jude, is like the more I trusted my team and showed them I would take actions that trusted them, the more empowered they became and the more results they produced.
Of course.
Right. But a high achieving control freak like me, and there's a lot of us out there, think we have to control the environments, control people, micromanage, stay on top of.
Yeah.
And that created space. So like some of the learnings that we've had here came from incredible mentors. By the way, I want to give a shout out and a highlight. December 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we're having a live event with all of our mentors there. Our marriage counselor, our health coach, our wealth coach. They're all going to be there live and you're going to see them and you have seen them on the podcast. So I want to make sure that you guys knew about it. Mark your calendars. Drop me a comment if you want to learn more. Get on my calendar. But because this is important. Like, and you can't always do it yourself. Like that was the other thing. Now I realized no one wins alone here.
Of course not.
So here we are.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
No, go back to the track of, you're working and those days you were traveling every other week, all week long. I mean, you were gone half the year almost, really. Yeah. And then when you were home, it was like a lot of work.
Right.
And there I was, in New York trying to get Roe better and better and better.
Yeah.
And for a while it worked until it didn't.
Yeah, it did.
Until all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
And what I realized was I wanted us to be reconnected.
Yeah.
And for me, what I noticed, it really takes us to first surrender to the circumstances.
Yep.
And then accept those circumstances.
Oof.
And then the third one, both partners have to be willing to look at it and talk about it.
Yeah.
Because that built up resentment that can happen, we turned each other into punching bags or, blame and shame and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, it did.
And it forced us to go back to what was happening then, surrender to it, accept what is happening, and then be willing to have the conversation.
Yeah, when you brought me back to one of the learnings back then, which was, we learned that 85% of husbands and wives get divorced when they have a child on the autism spectrum.
Yep.
And what I learned from that is, and it could be that, or it could be any circumstance. If when I chat with listeners, they all have their own great story about like how they got where they are, and they had some form of big, huge circumstance that affected their life. Here's what I learned from that. I'll never forget. I was standing in Columbus Circle, and I was actually walking home from work, and I realized that these circumstances unveil the areas that I have to put my attention on in my relationship with you.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't always a good communicator. I was always self-righteous. You laughing about that? Like I had this self-righteous thing because these were my coping mechanisms.
Sure.
Right. But they no longer worked when we needed to turn in and come together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all it would create is bickering and separation and, not talking to each other.
Yeah.
And those types of things. And, when you're going through a hard time, now, whenever we go through a hard time, we turn in.
Yeah.
And we would turn around and like blame each other, like you said, and point fingers and like that kind of crap.
Yeah.
And then guess what? I would have to go to work on top of that.
Yeah.
And deal with all those circumstances at work. You had to go deal with like trying to get Rome healthy and deal with that. So
it created such separation and isolation.
Yeah, we didn't need it. And I was drinking on top of it, which created more isolation.
At that point, no, you were not drinking. You had stopped.
Oh, right. This is where You're right. Thank you for.
But it's not always just the drinking. It unveiled other things that you needed to work on.
Yeah.
And that was those years that were really, really challenging.
Yeah.
But okay, because you needed to get through that.
Yeah. And allow yourself, I had to allow myself compassion. See, I remember one day you said, can you have some compassion? And I go, I do, damn it. I have tons of compassion. And I had no compassion for myself because the way I spoke to myself was so harsh.
Mm-hmm.
It was so rude. If I put a voice to how I spoke to myself, no human being would ever speak to another human being. Like my self-talk to myself was so vicious. It was ferocious. And
that came out to others though.
Oh yeah.
How you speak to yourself is how you speak to others.
That was the big learning. That was the beginning of a transformation that I realized like, hey, if I want to be kinder and gentler and nicer to people, it has to start with my connection and my relationship with myself.
Yep.
And so I remember like when you said that, like have some compassion. And I was like, oh, I don't have compassion for myself. And then I began starting to be kinder to myself. I began to like noticing like I was going to start screaming at myself. And I'm like, no, that's not happening today. And it started softening me. But here's the thing, as a high achieving entrepreneur, we misinterpret soft as like thinking we're not effective or have a sense of, see, we don't need that power. Like I want you to really highlight when you taught me how showing up was enough. And like this little 6-year-old, I called myself the little 6-year-old, little Gary, little CEO. Little Gary, you want to have a snacky snack, Gary? You have to go pee pee, Gary. Like, no, like, isn't Gary a funny name? Like,
yes,
it's a funny name. Like, I accepted it, but like, here's a snack. Like, Gary's like the kind of guy like that comes out of the womb like with an 800 FICO score. You know what I mean? It's like that, right? And by the way, I didn't make that up. Somebody sent me a GIF of that, which really cracks me up. But the thing about it is like, are you having some fun?
You went way up on a tangent.
I know. Let me reel me back here.
Okay.
Reel me back. Where the hell were we?
I don't know.
Right.
We were on something really good.
It was really good. Producer, where were we? Where the hell was I? No, I'll come back to this. We'll get back. So anyway.
The self-talk.
Yeah, the self-talk. I wasn't being kind to myself. And it was like, and the crack, by the way, we high achieving entrepreneurs are going, hey, if that was this way, then I would be this way. And then you came to me one day and you go, look, you're yelling. I'm going, this is a whisper in my family. Like What you called yelling was like, we used to scream and yell and throw things in my family. And then, you weren't brought up under those conditions.
Right.
Right. And so you're like, Gary, do you know that you just showing up is enough? And that floored me.
Well, I would love to talk about this
because I
think a lot of people don't realize that men have power just by walking in a room.
Yep.
And I can say this generally speaking, most men that I know don't realize that.
Yes.
And they think there has to be some sort of aggression, power move, domination, whatever it is when they're in a situation.
Yep.
But men are given whatever that is, that aura, that energy, that vibration, they already have it.
Yep.
And they don't need to be aggressive.
Yep.
And then going back to your point about thinking, asking for help, softening, being compassionate is perceived as weak. It is not. It is actually so powerful for others to see a man do that. It carries him forward.
Yep.
And the other quote that I love that you gave me is that being masculine doesn't include being aggressive.
Right.
It doesn't have to involve itself with masculinity.
Yep.
So I love this topic because I see it over and over again.
Well, yeah, that's what the inside man is all about. Presence over force and power.
Yeah.
And presence, like we're not taught presence. And the only way we get presence is through the power of example, where somebody could show us, or the cost is so great. See, for me, the cost was great. I knew I was losing you. You were like, oh, Jesus. My son, like, I believe that we were gifted a son with sensory processing disorder, because when I raised my voice, his auditory sensory processing is very sensitive.
Well, and the vibration.
Yeah, the vibration of it. And so like I had to be with my son and be in the home, and then you sharing with me the cost of it. And then see, my team didn't tell me, because I had a lot of puppets. Like I was like, and I designed, by the way, a lot of high achieving entrepreneurs.
I wouldn't call them puppets.
No, let me finish. I related to them like I wanted to be like the marionette, and like, but because I thought I had to control them. And my early employees, I attracted where I owned the space, and like everybody lined up with me. And then I evolved. Like now it's the furthest thing from that, right? But what I wanted to talk about is take us back to the early years. I wanted to control everything, including employees, and it doesn't work, because then you just have a bunch of people that are dependent upon my direction. And here's what happens as an entrepreneur. You get overworked and overwhelmed. You're needed more. And by the way, this is the ego identity that is calling forth the need to be needed. It's the need to be needed that I didn't know I was fulfilling upon. So here I was wanting to get out of the middle of my business, but I was perpetuating it.
So good.
Phenomenal. Incredible. If I could tell my 40-year-old self this wisdom, and look, I don't regret it, because now I created this inside man to be able to codify this stuff and give it away to men so they don't have to suffer anymore. You don't have to suffer to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be disconnected. See, let's highlight what's been happening here on this episode. Getting reconnected to self.
Yeah.
Being kind to self.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the transformation of being kind to you, being kind to Rome. Because the thing I love about you, and I want to acknowledge you, you saw the love that I had for you and everybody around me before I could give it away. Because I had it in me, but I couldn't give it away because I couldn't give it to myself first.
Yep.
And once I started giving it to myself first, I'm like, this feels really good. And the other thing happened was, I used to do tongue fu on people. Like if you didn't do what I wanted you to do, I'd be smacking down some tongue fu and like slicing and dicing people with my tongue. And I would be leaving dead people behind. Mm-hmm. You saw it. Mm-hmm. Once I started doing that and I was kind to myself, here's the transformation. I felt bad when I tongue fooed somebody.
It's awful.
But I was so insensitive before that, Jude, that I just talked to people however I talked to people, because that's how I was talked to as a young boy.
Yep.
And that's what I knew to do. And that's how I spoke to myself. And that's why I created Inside Man, because all transformation in your business, in your relationships start with you. And here's the good news about that. It starts with you. So you have full control over the outcome. But we don't look as high achieving entrepreneurial men. You know where we look? Our spreadsheets, our results, our
bank
accounts, what we provide for people.
Car in the garage,
long driveways, penthouses. To me, that was the definition. And now it's connection, it's impact, it's joy, going to work all day, every day. If something sucks and it doesn't feel right, we're shutting that thing off.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. This is the next thing I want to talk about. We have less days in our lives. We have less life. We have less days in our life. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
We have less days in our life. And I remember, looking at you and going, we got to get busy getting busy here. Mm-hmm. Getting busy, having fun, getting busy, being connected. Mm-hmm. And so we have less days in our life left, but we're going to put more life in our days.
Yes.
And when you start standing for, like, I love this thought of, when you know what your self-worth is, you don't give discounts anymore.
Yep.
And we don't let like anything misalign to values in our life at this point. And the quality of life that we're experiencing is extraordinary.
It is.
But we had to get through that resentment period. You brought up resentments.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until we sat down and repaired our relationship, right? And acknowledged what it was like and went back to, hey, I was on the road, honey, and I'm sorry I missed out on some stuff here. And we're gonna start making it up now. And I'm sorry I spoke to you poorly. Like the power of apologizing and the power of making amends.
That's another thing.
Was very important. Like you brought that wisdom to me.
Yeah. It's not a sign of weakness. It's another thing with men and being powerful and masculinity.
Yeah.
Saying sorry actually is very powerful.
Yeah.
It shifts the energy.
Yeah.
People are drawn to you, not repelled from you.
Yeah.
It changes everything. And it is not a weakness to apologize.
Yep. And these are all things that we outside men, we think is a sign of weakness. And we don't want to show any kink in our armor. So this is like the power of example of like saying, get off the self-righteous train.
Yeah.
Because I could be right, like, hey, and justify. I'm a great justifier.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a denial guy. I could go to denial, justification,
Well, we could have a situation and we both think we're completely right on it.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
You know what matters? That when you look at me, you don't go, you.
Yeah, that does matter. You don't want me looking at you like that.
No, but I would step over that and go just rub dirt in it and get over it.
Yeah, yeah.
What I learned was...
Get off my back, woman.
Yeah, get off my back, woman, with the bubble over my head. Get off my back, woman. And by the way, this is funny as hell.
I love
And
that.
this is so funny when she does it in the house. When I'll say something and it's like, get off my back, woman, like in a deep tone. It's very funny, by the way. You're funnier than I thought you were. I knew you were beautiful, smart. You're an entrepreneur. I met you at your spa, but you're funny as hell too.
Thank you.
I'm glad we got that part because if you can't laugh and have fun,
I knew you were funny.
Yeah.
You were funny.
Just by being me, like just rolling through life.
Day one. You're funny.
All right, good. Because were you laughing at me or with me? By the way, I love when you laugh at me. Forget this with me crap. You know what I mean? But look, we can go on and on forever.
I know.
What is the wisdom that you want high achieving entrepreneurial men to get and the partners who support them? What would be a final message that you would like to share with the group today?
Well, I think finding, I'm going to use that word balance, but there is a place between saying, okay, go for it, go fly, go do it all, and then needing someone at home to be there for you.
Yeah.
So there's some place in the middle where that can happen and you can be connected.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we are right now.
Yep.
Where we can, you can go and do and create.
Yep.
And we're still connected.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from both of us coming together, being humble, not blaming, being like connected. And what were the other words I was using? And willing to talk it out. The willingness to work together as a couple.
Yep.
That's where I found where we really took off at that moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I want to speak directly to the spouses here. And so if you're a high achieving man just watching it yourself, share this with your wife. And this is what I want to say to the spouse. Be a stand for what you know is the truth and reality. And like what I love about what you did was you risked our relationship, but you're risking it anyway. Mm-hmm. You might as well risk it.
That's right.
And tell the truth and have everything start lining up, then allow and enable the guy to just run rampant like a bull in a china shop. Nobody's winning. And guess who loses? The kids lose, you lose, 30 turns into 40, 40 into 50, 50 into 60. And you're like, what the heck? Where did this all go?
Yeah.
And so, put life in your days. And I want to invite you to participate. Judy Kadi is going to be December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's Savannah Resort in Carefree, Arizona, with our mentors, Jim Dew, who is our wealth advisor, who you're going to get intimate connection with, who is a rock star. You're going to have Dave Adamusco, who is a marriage coach and an incredible, helped me with my mental illness. And I was like on the verge of drugs, alcohol, and pharmaceuticals to allay this crazy town in the head. You're going to get Michael Fishman, who does branding and the soul of the business. You're going to get Heather Andrews, who's going to talk about parenting in a way that you never ever talked about parenting. I mean, she changed our lives.
She changed our lives.
And we became incredible parents in a way that, like, parenting is so difficult, and she simplifies it, and so on. You're going to have Sachin Patel. He changed our lives. Let's just
changed our health.
Our health. I mean, each one, we can go deep on each of these.
I mean, yeah.
But you don't want to miss this event, and you're invited because you're on the podcast. Scan, get on my calendar, and we'll talk more about it. Until next week, I love you, I respect you, and I
love you too.
I get moved to cry now because I could feel my feelings. And I'm not weak. I'm publishing this damn podcast to thousands of people every week and just being fully transparent. And that's what life is all about. Be who you are and express it out in the world. And that's what's possible here with the Inside Man. I love you, respect you, and I'll see you next week.